Reading three cards is the beginning of stringing Lenormand's cards into sentences. Mastering this short line is a turning point in our practice because beyond it, we are able to read much longer lines like the ones we find in the Grand Tableau. So in this video, I want to give you a few valuable tips around how to read three cards. Hi everyone, I'm Leila, the Lenormand reader, and I have been reading Lenormand almost exclusively for over 20 years. If you want to master Lenormand, you have come to the right place. Please subscribe and hit the bell button so that you are notified about all things Lenormand. I produce forecasts and tutorials every week. When practicing Lenormand, we're usually on a roll until we hit a 3-card reading. We whiz through 1 card and we do pretty well with 2 cards, but then we reach a 3-card line and we normally hit a roadblock. Though this can be a little frustrating, believe me, I know, I have been there. It's actually a pretty valuable time in your practice because once you master 3 cards, you're pretty much well on your way to being able to read long lines like the ones we find in the Grand Tableau. Why? Because at this point, reading more cards is just an application of the interpretation principles that we used with 3 cards. So in this video, I want to give you helpful tips for how to read 3 cards, but I also want to start out with 1 and 2 card readings so that we build coherently up to 3 cards. Let's talk about 1 card readings. If you're just starting out with Lenormand, obviously you're going to spend a bit of time on this step. You're going to take out the cards one by one and go through them so that you get a sense of what their meaning is. And then you're going to start asking a whole lot of questions and answering them with just 1 card. This way, you'll be able to start jogging your interpretation skills to answer specific questions. And you want to spend a bit of time doing this because this way you'll be able to stretch the meaning of the cards for different contexts. If you're just starting out with Lenormand, you might want to check out my video on getting started with Lenormand. You'll probably find 1 card readings pretty limiting, especially when they're neutral cards, because then they're not really telling us how well or how challenging something is going. So although doing 1 card readings is a necessary step in our practice, we're probably going to quickly find that it doesn't do much for us and we're ready to go beyond. So let's go ahead and talk about 2 card readings. Reading 2 cards is awesome because this is when the magic starts to happen. Card combinations are the basis for the Lenormand practice. And if you're good at reading pairs, you're going to have to be good at reading 3 cards. So it's really worth your while to spend quite a bit of time practicing card combinations in pairs. This isn't only about figuring out the card pair meaning, but it's also about deepening your understanding of each card. That's because when you combine the cards, you sort of have to stretch your interpretation of the individual cards so that you can make sense of them together. This is a wonderful practice that is pretty much unique to Lenormand and that will take your interpretation skills to the next level. So just like you did with 1 card readings, you're going to do the same thing with 2 card readings. You're going to take out a couple of cards and you're going to interpret them in general, and then you're going to do the same thing while asking a whole lot of questions. This way, you're not only thinking about the card pairs in and of themselves, but you're also trying to interpret them for different questions and different contexts. And now 3 card readings. The key to reading 3 cards is pretty straightforward. You're going to combine them as 2 pairs. So you're going to read card 1 and 2 together as 1 pair, and then card 2 and 3 as a second pair, and then you're going to combine the 2 pairs into 1 whole line. You can really break this down into steps if you are stuck with the cards. So try this. Take out a piece of paper and write down keywords for each of the cards. Then combine keywords for card 1 with keywords for card 2 and try to come up with a keyword for this pair. And do the same thing with cards 2 and 3. And then you're going to combine the keywords that you got for each of the pairs. Now sometimes you have to be a little bit flexible so that it makes sense, but that is totally fine and that is part of the practice. It really helps to write it down on paper. Writing really helps us take the ideas out of our heads, and in the process, we clarify our ideas. So let's try an example. Suppose we get the lily, man, and tree. These are not the easiest of cards, but this is what I drew randomly for this video, so let's go ahead and work with it. Let's think of keywords for each of the cards. For the lily, I'm thinking career. And for the man, well, it's just a man. And for the tree, I'm thinking growth. So let's go ahead and combine 1 and 2. That would be career man. Obviously, this doesn't make much sense like this, so maybe we'll adjust it a bit. How about professional man, or possibly a professional contact or connection? Now let's move on to 2 and 3. We have man, that is straightforward, and with the tree, perhaps it's man growth. Of course, this doesn't make much sense, so maybe we can throw in a verb. How about a man supports growth? Man supports our growth. Now let's put these two pairs together. We got a professional connection, helps us with our growth. It's also possible to look at the cards as suggesting a man supports our professional growth. So this is a pretty straightforward way of combining the cards by first breaking them down into several pairs. In this case, it's just 2 pairs because it's a 3-card reading. It's worth mentioning here that we don't necessarily have to expect the cards to tell us something extraordinarily out of this world. In fact, it's really typical of Lenormand to give us day-to-day indications. And that's why so many of us feel that the Lenormand deck is so practical and so connected with what happens in life. Let's move on to another tip about reading cards in 3 cards. Another way to string 3 cards together is by reading them as a sequence of events. In this case, we don't combine the cards like we did in the previous example, or at least not all 3 of them, but we might sequence them in like an order, so they tell us a story, and the story unfolds through the order of the cards. I find that the best cards that illustrate this kind of sequencing are movement cards. So for example, the road, ship, and anchor. I feel that this line tells us that we travel a certain distance and then arrive to our destination. The road and ship really help tell the story that we are crossing a path, traveling a distance. And then the anchor obviously has to do with landing. And it also figures on the right-hand side of the 3-card line. So we get that feeling of arrival. And it's not really a feeling, it's really obvious in the cards. So this is how we would weave the cards into a sequence of events. At this point, I want you to note that you can't always yourself decide whether to read the cards in terms of combining them into a new keyword or as a sequence of events. Often, it's the cards themselves that guide you with how best to read them. So you're going to have to go with the cards, with the context of the question, and from there, you'll get the best sense of how to weave them into a sentence. I want you to tell me if this is your experience and if there are other tips that you use to weave the cards in a 3-card line. Another tip that is really helpful to read a 3-card line is to focus on the central card. The central card often carries the theme of the reading, and this is not just in a simple 3-card line. It can also apply to any line that is made up of an odd number of cards, and even to structures like the portrait or the grand tableau. The idea of the central cards is that they focus the theme of the reading. So in a 3-card line, you might like to start practicing this approach and picking up what is the theme that is being brought or communicated by this line. For example, if you get the letter or the bird in the center of the line, it might be bringing up the area of communication. And then the cards on the left and right to the central card will tell you how this goes, what you need to do about it, or what is the outcome of this communication. The central card can also represent the main advice that the reading is giving us. Of course, every card in a reading carries advice. But if we're going to focus on one specific area as a key takeaway, then the central card is a good candidate for that, and it's going to give us the main clues. Of course, this is up to you. It depends on how you want to make sense of the cards, but I want to say that it helps to decide these things beforehand, before you do the reading. And another way we can read the central card is as the main outcome of the reading. Because of its central position, the central card can actually suggest the outcome. But I want to say that this too is going to depend on how you want to weave the cards. For example, in a past, present, and future reading, it's not likely that the central card or the present card is the outcome. Instead, it's more likely that the right-hand card, which is the future one, is the outcome. And this leads me to my 6th tip on reading 3 cards. The past, present, and future reading is popular in many methods, including Lenormand, the tarot, and many others. Normally, we read the left-hand side card as the past, the middle card as the present, and the right-hand card as the future. In this case, we read each card independently of the others, but it is also a way of sequencing the cards into a sequence of events. The only difference here is that the past, present, and future time periods are demarked from one another more sharply than in just a regular sequence of events like the one we mentioned earlier. I just want to bring up to your attention that, as you know, a single card in Lenormand is not really telling. So when we have just one card for the past, one card for the present, and one for the future, we might not get a lot of detail about these different time periods. So I like to do a past, present, and future reading with Lenormand a little bit differently. But I think we're best keeping this for another video. And of course, in the master courses, we dive into this with a lot of detail and a lot of depth, and there are many ways to do a past, present, and future reading with Lenormand. It's not just 3 cards or more cards or my own personal way of doing a past, present, and future. So we've gone through quite a few tips to get you going with a 3-card line. I sure hope it helps you get unstuck if you've been struggling with it at all. And by all means, leave me your thoughts and comments so that I can respond with any concerns that you have. And if you're just getting started with Lenormand, then be sure to check out my Lenormand Starter Guide. It is free to download, and I also have other free resources that you can download as well. And do check out the Pro Guides and the Master Courses if you're ready to take your practice to the next level. There's plenty that I can offer. If you like that video, hit that like button and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, and do share it with your Lenormand friends. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm looking forward to our next video together.